My name is Megan, and at 42 years old, I've finally found peace in my life. It wasn't easy getting here, especially after losing Tom, my husband, to cancer 3 years ago. We were together for 15 years, and I still catch myself reaching for his side of the bed some mornings. Tom left me everything, our big house in the suburbs and about $700,000 in savings and investments. I know it sounds like a lot, but I'd trade every penny to have him back. Still, I've made a comfortable life for myself. I work as an HR manager at a tech company downtown, and I've learned to enjoy my own company. My parents, on the other hand, think my life is empty. Mom calls it wasting away, and Dad nods along with whatever she says. They've been married for 45 years and can't understand why I haven't remarried. You're still young enough to find someone, Mom says at least once during every visit. And it's not too late to have children, you know, there are options these days. I visit them once a month, always on a Sunday. It's a 2-hour drive that I've come to dread. The minute I walk through their door, the lectures begin. Megan, I ran into Susan Williams at Bridge Club, Mom will say, her voice dripping with forced casualness. Her son David is divorced now. He's an accountant, you know. What Mom doesn't mention is that David Williams still lives in his mother's basement at 39 and has been between jobs for the past 3 years. I know all about these sons of Mom's friends. They're looking for a meal ticket, not a wife. Thanks, Mom, but I'm not interested in dating right now, is my standard response. Last Sunday's visit started like all the others. I arrived at noon, helped Mom with lunch, and braced myself for the inevitable relationship inquisition. But something was different this time. They didn't mention David Williams or any other eligible bachelor. Instead, they were unusually quiet during lunch. Is everything okay? I finally asked, suspicious of the peace. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. Well, Mom said, carefully folding her napkin, we're worried about your brother. That got my attention. Jake is 35, 7 years younger than me. Unlike me, Jake had followed the traditional path, married Vanessa 3 years ago. My parents adored Vanessa from day one. She was pretty, polite, and most importantly, wanted a big family. What about Jake? I asked. He lost his job, Dad said, the company downsized, and he was one of the first to go. And now he and Vanessa can't afford their rent. They're going to be evicted at the end of the month. I nodded slowly, already sensing where this conversation was headed. They need a place to stay, Mom added, her tone shifting from concern to demanding. Just until Jake finds another job and they save enough for a new apartment. I sighed, Jake's a bit chaotic, Mom, you know that. And I'm used to living alone. He's your brother, Mom said sharply, family helps family. And Vanessa is such a lovely girl, she'll help around the house. They won't be any trouble. I doubted that. Jake had always been the golden child, but he was also impulsive and disorganized. Even as a kid, his room looked like a tornado had hit it. And while Vanessa seemed nice enough from our limited interactions at family gatherings, I didn't know her well. How long would they need to stay? I asked. Just a few months, Mom insisted, 3 at most. Jake has some promising leads already. I doubted that too. The pharmaceutical industry had been laying people off left and right. Please, Megan, Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. We'd take them in ourselves, but you know our place is too small. Their 2-bedroom condo was indeed too small for 4 adults. And my house did have plenty of space. After an hour of guilt trips and promises that Jake and Vanessa would be perfect houseguests, I reluctantly agreed. Fine, they can stay with me temporarily. But we need to set some ground rules. Mom's face lit up with relief. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Jake will be so grateful, I'll call him right now. As Mom rushed to the phone, Dad patted my shoulder, that's my girl. Jake's lucky to have a sister like you. I smiled weakly, already regretting my decision. But how bad could it be? A few months with my brother and his wife, I could handle that, right? A week later, Jake and Vanessa arrived at my doorstep with 4 suitcases and hopeful smiles. Sis, Jake hugged me tight, his familiar cologne bringing back childhood memories. Thank you so much for this. We promise we won't be a burden. Vanessa hung back slightly, her blonde hair pulled into a neat ponytail. We can't thank you enough, Megan. This means the world to us. She seemed genuinely grateful, her voice soft and sincere. I showed them to the guest bedroom on the first floor. Make yourselves at home, I said, handing Jake a set of keys. I've cleared some space in the kitchen cabinets for your stuff. This is so generous of you, Vanessa said, looking around. I'd love to help out while we're here. I can cook and clean, it's the least I can do. That would be great, I said, feeling slightly relieved. Maybe this arrangement would work out after all. I usually get home around 6, and I'm not much of a cook. Don't worry about a thing, Vanessa smiled. I'll take care of dinner every night. We worked out a simple arrangement. I would buy groceries for all of us, and they would handle cooking and cleaning until they found jobs. I also asked them to be mindful of utilities. Tom and I had installed smart thermostats and LED lighting throughout the house to keep bills reasonable, and I wanted to keep it that way. The first few weeks were surprisingly pleasant. I'd come home to delicious home-cooked meals, Vanessa was an excellent cook, and a clean house. Jake spent his days job hunting, and Vanessa kept everything running smoothly. I even started to enjoy having company around after years of living alone. About a month into our living arrangement, I noticed things starting to change. The hot dinners waiting for me when I got home became less frequent. The house wasn't as tidy as before. One Tuesday, I came home to find the kitchen untouched since breakfast, dishes still in the sink. I made myself a sandwich and sat down to eat alone. Around 7:30, Jake and Vanessa finally came home. Oh, you already ate, Vanessa said, barely glancing at me as she dropped her shopping bags on the counter. Yeah, I figured you guys were busy, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Everything okay? Jake opened the fridge and grabbed a beer, just running some errands. I noticed Vanessa's bags were from high-end stores I couldn't afford to shop at regularly, even with my comfortable salary. I wondered how they were affording shopping sprees when they couldn't pay rent. The next evening was similar, no dinner prepared, and the house a mess. When they finally showed up, I decided to ask directly. I thought we had an agreement about dinner and keeping the place clean, I said as I microwaved leftovers. Vanessa sighed dramatically, I've been super busy lately. I'm starting a business with some friends. We've been meeting here during the day to plan everything. Here? You've been having people over to my house? I felt a flash of annoyance. It's just a few friends, Vanessa shrugged, we needed somewhere to meet. I put down my fork, Vanessa, this is my house. I don't know these people. I'm not comfortable with strangers being here when I'm not home. They're not strangers, they're my friends, she snapped. They're strangers to me, I countered. If you want to meet with them, you should go to a coffee shop or one of their houses. Vanessa stared at me for a moment, then threw her fork onto her plate with a clatter. She pushed back from the table and stormed off to their bedroom. Jake glared at me, way to go, sis. She's trying to build something here. Jake, I'm not trying to be difficult, but... He didn't wait for me to finish, just got up and followed his wife. After that night, the atmosphere in the house changed completely. Vanessa stopped acknowledging me altogether, no good morning, no how was your day, nothing. She also stopped cooking for me entirely. I'd come home to find evidence that they'd eaten, take-out containers or dirty pans, but nothing left for me. I went back to preparing my own meals, just as I had before they moved in. 2 months into their stay, I was beginning to feel like a stranger in my own home. One evening, I found them sprawled on my living room couch, watching TV and sharing a large pizza. They didn't offer me any. I decided it was time for another conversation. Hey guys, quick question, how's the job hunt going? Jake barely looked away from the TV. Oh, you know, making progress. What does that mean? I pressed. He shrugged. I've had a few interviews, nothing solid yet. Vanessa didn't even pretend to acknowledge me. It's been 2 months, I reminded them. When you moved in, we talked about this being temporary. We'll let you know when we have news, Jake said dismissively, turning back to the TV. The following Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for our monthly visit. Jake and Vanessa had declined to join me. I was actually relieved. I needed to talk to my parents alone. When I arrived, Mom hugged me tightly. How's everything going with Jake and Vanessa? That's what I wanted to talk to you about, I started. Before I could continue, Mom launched into her concerns. Jake says you've been pressuring them about finding jobs. He says you treat them like they're taking advantage of you. I was stunned. What? I barely mentioned it. I just asked how the search was going. He says you're making them feel unwelcome, Dad added. That's not like you, Megan. They promised to help around the house, and Vanessa stopped doing that weeks ago, I explained. And she's been inviting people over without asking me. Mom shook her head. They're going through a difficult time, Megan. You need to be more understanding. Understanding? They're living in my house rent-free, and I'm buying all their food. I could feel my frustration building. They're family, Dad said firmly. Family supports each other. I realized there was no point arguing. My parents had already decided I was in the wrong. I changed the subject, and we had an uncomfortable dinner before I headed home. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in my spot. Confused, I parked on the street and went inside. The moment I opened the door, I saw several large suitcases in the hallway. Voices came from the living room, more than just Jake and Vanessa's. I walked in to find an older couple sitting on my couch. I recognized them as Vanessa's parents, Robert and Linda, though we'd only met a few times at family gatherings. Everyone fell silent when I entered. Megan, Jake said with forced enthusiasm, look who's visiting. I pasted on a smile. Hello, Robert, Linda, nice to see you. Linda nodded stiffly. Megan. Jake, can I talk to you for a minute? I kept my voice pleasant, though inside I was seething. Jake followed me upstairs to my home office. What's going on? I asked once the door was closed. Why are Vanessa's parents here with suitcases? Jake ran a hand through his hair nervously. They're just visiting for a week. They're on their way to Arizona to see Vanessa's brother. And you didn't think to ask me before inviting them to stay in my house? I could hear my voice rising. Please, Megan, Jake begged, it's just for a week. They'll be gone before you know it. I took a deep breath. This is exactly what I was talking about, Jake. This is my house. You can't just invite people to stay here without asking me. I know, I'm sorry, he said, but they're already here. What do you want me to do? Send them to a hotel? I stared at Jake's pleading face and felt myself caving, again. Fine, 1 week, but that's it. Jake's face lit up. Thanks, sis, you're the best. As we went back downstairs, I noticed Vanessa had made dinner. Suddenly, she was being helpful again, now that her parents were here. We all sat down for dinner, and I tried to be polite despite my irritation. So, Megan, Linda, Vanessa's mother, began, this is quite a lovely home. How many bedrooms did you say it has? 4, I replied between bites. And you live here all alone, Robert, her father, asked. Yes, Tom left me everything when he passed. I didn't like discussing my finances with people I barely knew. Such a large house for just one person, Linda remarked. How do you manage the upkeep? I manage fine, I said shortly. Linda exchanged a look with Robert. You know, if I had a house this size, I'd probably sell it. Too much space for one person, and the money could help other family members. I nearly choked on my water. Excuse me? I mean, you could sell this place, give half to your brother so he and Vanessa could buy their own home, and you could get something more appropriate for your situation. The audacity left me speechless for a moment. Jake looked uncomfortable, staring at his plate. When you have a house like this of your own, I finally said to Linda, keeping my voice level, you're welcome to sell it and give the money to your children. This is my home, and I have no plans to sell it. An awkward silence fell over the table. Linda pursed her lips, and Vanessa shot me a venomous look. We finished dinner with minimal conversation. The next week was excruciating. Every time I entered a room, conversation stopped abruptly. Linda and Robert asked invasive questions about my finances, my job, and my personal life. They treated my home like a hotel, leaving wet towels on the bathroom floor and dishes in the sink. I counted down the days until they would leave. Friday couldn't come fast enough. When Friday finally arrived, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders as I drove home from work. Soon, it would be just me, Jake, and Vanessa again, which was still not ideal, but better than having Vanessa's parents there too. As I turned onto my street, I rehearsed what I would say to Jake. It was time for a serious conversation about their job search and moving out timeline. 3 months had passed, and they showed no signs of leaving. I pulled into my driveway and walked to my front door. When I opened it, I froze. Several of my suitcases were sitting in the hallway. Confused, I opened one. Inside were my clothes, hastily folded and crammed in. My toiletries were stuffed in a side pocket. I heard voices from the living room and walked in, my heart pounding. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents were huddled together, looking at what appeared to be a guest list. "What's going on?" I said loudly. "Why are my things packed?" They exchanged glances, no one spoke for a moment. Finally, Vanessa shrugged. "We're planning my parents' 35th anniversary party. Their relatives are coming here tomorrow." "Here, in my house?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's just for the weekend," Jake said weakly. "And where am I supposed to go?" I demanded. "We thought you could stay at a hotel," Vanessa said casually. "Or with your parents, we need the space for the guests." I stared at them, dumbfounded. They had packed my belongings and planned to kick me out of my own house for a party I hadn't even been told about. "This is my house," I said slowly, my voice shaking with anger. "You don't get to decide who stays here or who leaves. If anyone's going to a hotel, it's your relatives." "Don't be ridiculous," Linda scoffed. "We can't ask family to stay at a hotel." "But you can ask me to leave my own home?" I was incredulous. "It's just for one weekend," Vanessa said dismissively. "Don't be so selfish." "Selfish?" I nearly shouted the word. "I've let you live here rent-free for 3 months. I bought your groceries, paid all the utilities, and put up with your complete lack of respect for my home and privacy." "You're being dramatic," Vanessa rolled her eyes. "I want your parents out of my house by tomorrow," I said firmly. "And there will be no party here." Linda gasped. "You can't do that. We've already invited everyone." "Watch me," I said coldly. I turned to Jake. "I expected better from you." Jake at least had the decency to look ashamed, but he said nothing in my defense. I went upstairs to my bedroom, slammed the door, and called my mother. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Mom," I said when she answered, "Jake and Vanessa are trying to throw me out of my own house for the weekend so Vanessa's parents can have an anniversary party here." There was a pause. "Jake mentioned something about a small gathering," she said carefully. "You knew about this?" I couldn't believe it. "Well, yes, it seemed reasonable to me." "It's just for one weekend, Megan." I felt like I'd been slapped. "It's my house, Mom."
The invitation
They
came
didn't
through
even
our
ask
family
me.
group chat.
"Family
My
helps
mother's
family,"
perfectly
she repeated
worded
her
message
familiar
dripping
refrain.
with concerned
"Why
disappointment.
don't you stay with us for the weekend?
Emergency family meeting.
It would give you a break from all the
Thursday,
tension."
7 p.m.
In that moment, I
Alexandra
realized
needs
my
our
parents
help
were
with her
complicit in this whole situation.
My
They had known
situation.
all along and approved of
That's
Jake
what
and
they've been
Vanessa's
calling my
behavior.
decision to
"I
quit
have to
my
go," I
prestigious
said and hung
consulting
up.
job and start
I
my
sat
own
on my
company.
bed, trying to
2
process what
years
was
of subtle
happening.
jabs,
My
worried
own
phone
family was
calls,
trying to take
and
over my
not so
home,
subtle
and my
hints
parents
about
were
real
supporting them.
jobs with
I
actual
felt
benefits.
betrayed and angry, but
I
mostly,
sat in
I
my
felt
car
determined.
outside my parents'
I woke up early
colonial-style
Saturday
house,
morning with a clear
the
head and a
same one
plan.
I'd grown up in,
I listened
where
carefully and heard
success was
nothing.
measured
The
in
house was
Ivy League
silent.
degrees and corporate
I checked my
titles.
phone.
My
7:15
sister
a.m.
Emma's Range
Perfect.
Rover sat in the
I peeked out
circular
my bedroom
driveway
door.
next
The
to
hallway was
Dad's
empty.
Mercedes, And
I
Mom's
tiptoed downstairs
BMW.
and confirmed what I'd
My
hoped.
Toyota
Jake,
Corolla looked
Vanessa,
decidedly
and her
out of
parents had
place.
gone shopping for party
Exactly how
supplies.
they saw me these days.
This was my chance.
My phone buzzed.
Last night, after our
Another message from
confrontation,
Marcus,
I'd pretended to
my
give in.
CFO.
I went
Forbes
downstairs,
article
put on a
goes
fake
live
smile, and
at
told them they
8
were
p.m.
right. I was
Eastern
being
Standard
selfish.
Time. You
I
ready
should
for
let them
this?
have their party.
I texted back.
My mother had
Perfect
called
timing.
back, and I told her I'd be
Family
staying with them for the
intervention starts
weekend
at
after all.
7.
Jake
His
looked
response was
relieved,
immediate.
Vanessa seemed smug, and her
Savage.
parents were triumphant.
Want me to send a car
They
to
believed
rescue
they'd
you?
won, little did they know.
No need.
As soon as they
Some
left
things are
this
worth
morning,
waiting
I
for.
sprang into action.
I checked my reflection
I called a
in the rearview
24-hour
mirror.
locksmith I'd found
No
online
designer
last
clothes
night.
tonight.
He
Just a
promised to be
simple
at my
black
house within the
blazer over a
hour.
white shirt.
While I
Minimal
waited, I
makeup,
gathered all of
hair
Jake and
pulled back
Vanessa's
neatly.
belongings.
Let them think
Their
I couldn't
clothes,
afford better.
toiletries,
It
shoes,
made the coming
everything.
revelation sweeter.
I did the same with
The
Linda
door
and
opened
Robert's
before I could
things.
knock.
I packed them all
Mom stood
neatly
there
into
in
their
her channel
suitcases
suit.
and duffel bags.
Perfect makeup not
The
quite
locksmith
hiding her
arrived at
frown
8:30
lines.
a.m.
Alexander,
By
darling,
10 a.m., every
you're
lock in
late.
my house had been
By 2
changed.
minutes.
I
Mom,
paid Mike, thanked him
details
profusely,
matter
and
in
dragged
business,
all the
dear.
suitcases
She
outside onto the
ushered me
front lawn.
inside.
Then I
Something
sat
you
in
might
my
want to
living room with a
consider.
cup of tea and waited.
The living room was
Around
set up
noon,
like a
a
corporate
car pulled into my
intervention.
driveway.
Dad in his
Jake,
power position
Vanessa,
by the
and her parents got
fireplace.
out, arms
Emma
full of
and her
grocery
husband
bags and
James
party
on the leather
decorations.
sofa.
They
Mom's
saw the
sister, Aunt
suitcases
Patricia,
immediately.
in the wingback chair.
Confusion crossed
They'd
their
even
faces as
called
they
in
approached the front door.
reinforcements.
I heard
Ally.
Jake's key in the lock,
Emma
followed
air
by the
kissed my
sound of him
cheek.
jiggling it when it didn't
Love the
work.
blazer.
Then
H
came the
and M.
knocking. Megan,
Thrift
the key
store,
isn't working,
actually.
Jake called through
I
the door.
watched her try to hide her horror.
I walked to the door but didn't open
Sustainable
it.
fashion.
That's because I changed the locks.
Very on trend.
There was a stunned
Dad
silence,
cleared his
then
throat.
Vanessa's voice. What?
Let's get started.
Open the door
We're
right
here
now.
because we're worried about you.
No, I said
Alexandra.
firmly. I want all
About
of
my
you off my
situation?
property.
I took the least
You can't do
comfortable
this,
chair,
Linda shrieked.
deliberately facing them all.
Our party is tonight.
About
People
your
are
choices,
coming.
Mom corrected.
You should have thought about
2
that
years
before
ago,
trying to throw
you
me out
had
of my own
everything.
house. I replied
Junior
calmly.
partner track at McKinsey.
Jake's voice turned pleading.
That lovely
Megan,
penthouse
come on,
apartment.
we can talk about this.
William.
There's nothing to
yes,
talk
William.
about.
The
You've
investment
taken
banker
advantage of
they'd
my
practically
generosity for
planned our
months.
wedding to,
You've
before I called
disrespected
it
me
off
in
to
my own
start
home.
company. And
And now you've tried to force me
Dad
out so
gestured
you can
vaguely.
throw a party I never
Living
approved
in
of.
that tiny
We're done
apartment,
talking.
driving that
Vanessa
old
started
car,
pounding on the door.
working
You
on
can't do
some-
this.
What do you
Let
call
us in
it?
right now or I'll
Tech
call the
startup.
police.
James
Go
supplied
ahead, I
helpfully.
said. I'll explain
Though
how you've been
startup
squatting in my
implies
home and
growth
refusing to
potential.
leave when asked.
He smiled.
I'm sure they'll be
All
very
teeth
interested.
and MBA
Jake tried a
confidence.
different approach.
I took
Sis,
a look at your
please.
sector.
Where are we
The market's
supposed to go?
saturated.
That's not
No
my problem
room for
anymore.
New players without
You've had
serious
3 months
capital
to figure
backing.
it out. Time's
I
up.
bit back a smile.
Linda was wailing now
James,
about her ruined
who tried to
anniversary.
get his own startup funded
Robert was
3
trying to
times
calm her
before
down.
falling back on his
Vanessa
trust
had
fund.
moved from pounding on the door to
James,
kicking it.
who had no idea
If you
he'd been
damage my
pitching to
property,
one of
I
my
will call the
subsidiary
police, I
investment
warned her.
firms last month.
The kicking stopped.
James, who'd
Mom
been
and Dad are
rejected.
going to hear about
Again.
this, Jake threatened.
We're just trying to help.
I'm sure they will,
Emma
I
added.
replied. Now please
There's
leave
no
before I
shame
call
in
the
admitting
authorities.
something isn't working.
There was more arguing,
Mackenzie would take you
pleading,
back
and
in a
threatening,
heartbeat.
but I stood firm.
Actually,
Eventually,
Aunt
I
Patricia
heard them
chimed
loading
in.
their suitcases into
Barbara's
their
daughter
cars.
just got promoted to
I
partner
watched through
there.
the window as they drove away,
Youngest
Jake
female
and Vanessa
partner
in
in
one
their
car,
history.
Linda and Robert
She
in
paused
another.
meaningfully.
As predicted,
could have
my
been
phone
you.
started ringing almost immediately.
I checked my watch.
My mother's name
7:43
flashed on the
p.m.
screen.
The Forbes
I
article
declined
would
the
drop
call.
in 17 minutes.
Then came a barrage of
You
text
haven't even
messages.
told us what your company
Mom,
actually
what
does.
have you done?
Mom complained.
Jake says you threw them
All
out.
this secrecy.
Dad,
These
call
long
us immediately,
hours,
young
and
lady.
what do you have to show for it?
I turned off my phone,
Dad
made
stood,
myself another cup of
assuming
tea,
his
and sat in the
CEO
peaceful
stance,
quiet of my
the
home
same
for the
one
first
he'd
time
used
in
for
months.
countless boardroom
The
presentations.
messages kept coming over the next
We're here
few
to
days.
discuss your failing company.
My
and
parents
plan
called
your
and
next
texted
steps.
incessantly.
No more avoiding the
Their
reality.
messages grew increasingly
Emma's
angry,
phone
calling me
chimed.
cruel, selfish,
glanced
and
at it,
heartless.
Then did a double
Jake
take.
sent a long
Her
text saying he
perfectly
was cutting
maintained
ties with me
composure
forever.
cracked. Oh
I
my
didn't
God,
respond to any of
she
them.
whispered.
After
Then
a
louder.
week, I finally turned my
Why
phone
is your
back on
face
for
on
good.
Forbes 30 under
The
30
messages had
list?
slowed to a trickle.
The room froze.
I heard through my cousin
Mom's
Emily that
wine
Jake
glass
and Vanessa
stopped
had moved
halfway
in
to
with
her
my
lips.
parents.
James grabbed
Apparently,
Emma's phone.
my parents' tune changed
That's
quickly when they
impossible.
had to deal with
He
Jake and
scrolled
Vanessa's
frantically.
entitled behavior
This
firsthand.
can't be.
Emily told me my
Alexandra
parents
Bennett,
had given Jake and
28,
Vanessa an ultimatum:
founder and
find jobs
CEO
within
of
2 months
Neurotech
and save
Solutions,
enough for their own place, or
valued
they'd have to
at
leave.
This has
I
to
couldn't
be a
help but
mistake.
smile at the irony.
$2 billion.
It's
I
been a
supplied
month since I
calmly.
changed my locks.
That's the current valuation.
My parents still
after
aren't
our
speaking
last
to me,
funding
and
round.
honestly, I'm okay
Though
with
that
that.
number's a bit outdated now.
The silence has been healing.
Dad sank back into
No more
his
lectures
chair.
about my life choices, no more pushing me to
billion?
date men I'm not interested
like to
in,
know what
no
my
more
company
guilt
does
trips
now?
about not having
I
children.
pulled out my tablet.
I've rediscovered the
opening
peace
our
of my
investor
home.
presentation.
I've reclaimed my
Neurotech
space and my
Solutions
boundaries.
develops AI-driven
Some might call me
adaptive learning
selfish for
systems.
not letting my family walk
We're
all over me,
revolutionizing
but I
how
call it
machines
self-respect.
process and respond to
Maybe
complex
someday we'll
data.
reconcile.
That tiny apartment
Maybe my
I
parents
live
will
in,
realize that their
it's
golden
actually
child
the
isn't so
smallest
golden
unit
after
in a
all.
building I own.
Maybe
That
Jake will
old
grow up and
Toyota.
take responsibility
I
for his
bought it
own
because
life
it's
instead of
practical and
expecting
reliable,
handouts.
like all
Maybe
good
Vanessa will
investments should
learn
be.
that family isn't a resource
Mom's
to be
wine glass
exploited.
trembled.
Or maybe not,
But-
either way,
but
I'm
you
done being
never
the
said
family
anything.
doormat. Last
never
weekend,
asked.
I repainted the guest
You were too
bedroom,
busy
a bright,
lamenting my
cheerful
failure
yellow that
to
makes me
notice my
smile every
success.
time I pass
I
by.
stood up.
I've started
straightening my
hosting
thrift
dinner
store
parties for my
blazing.
friends, something
Our
I'd stopped doing
technology
when Jake
is
and
being
Vanessa moved in.
implemented by major tech
I'm living
companies
my life on my
worldwide.
terms.
That's why
It may
I've
not
been
be the
working
life
such
my
long
parents
hours.
envisioned for me, no
That's
husband,
why
no
I've been
children,
secretive.
just me and my two-big house,
that's
but
why,
it's my life.
In about 2 minutes,
And after standing up for
Forbes is
myself,
running a
after
feature
finally
article
setting
about how a
boundaries that even my family
28-year-old
couldn't
woman
cross,
built
I'm
a
proud of it.
multi-billion-dollar tech empire